This has been a long-awaited topic that I've been putting off for a very long time, and I think it's time that we actually talk about it. We all have heard that trading is 90% psychological and 10% technical, but there's so much more to it that nobody is breaking down that I'm going to break down in this video. Before we start, if you guys want to work more closely with me, click the link in my description and you can book a phone call with me and let's just talk and see if we would be a good fit to work with each other. Now, without further ado, let's get into this information. So, as an experienced trader, I have dealt with psychology a lot. And when I first started trading, everyone was saying, learn the technicals of trading, learn what support is, resistance, how to use a trend line, all these things. But I never understood how the human mind works and how it plays such a major part in our trading. One thing that I dealt with as a child for a very long time is I never understood how to be patient. And when I was younger, when I'd be at family gatherings, even at Disneyland with my dad, I would always be asking my dad, when can we go home? Dad, when are we gonna leave? And I never really understood why I wanted to go home, what it was. I think I never could be present. And I have ADHD. Growing up, I had ADHD, it was really bad. And I never could be present and enjoy what was happening in that current moment. And as I grew up and got older, I started to understand that it got a lot worse in my adulthood versus my childhood. And this is something that I had to figure out very quickly, because when you're dealing with money, there are a lot of emotions that are going on. But when it comes to trading, I believe that patience is one of the most important things that you need to understand and you need to conquer, because if you're not patient, you're going to force a trade that's not there. If you're not patient, you're going to take a trade too early. If you're not patient, you're going to close a trade too early. And this impatient nature that I had was bleeding into my trading and affecting me a lot. I was taking trades that weren't there, thinking that setup wasn't going to be there later on. When I was in a trade, I would see that the trade was in profit like $500, but it still had a couple hundred pips away from my take profit, and I closed the trade prematurely. And that was affecting my trading so much, because when I was closing a trade prematurely, yeah, I had a good win ratio, but when I would take a loss, the losses would be almost as big as those wins. So if I was taking like 7 wins and then I had 4 losses, I was barely breaking even at the end of the month, meaning that I wasn't seeing as much profit as I should have been seeing. Another thing that I used to do, and it's crazy because this has happened so many times, I don't know if you guys can relate, but I would be trading and then I would go into a trade and I'd have my stop loss set, and I would see the trade like on indices, it would be like 200 pips away from my stop loss. And I convinced myself, okay, it's gonna hit my stop loss. So instead of me taking the loss, right, or instead of me taking that loss and losing 200 pips more, let me just take the loss now. And then I'd look back at the chart an hour later and it didn't even hit my stop loss and it went and hit my take profit. So by me having this impatient nature, I was really getting affected greatly in my trading, and it was making me not take as big of profits as I should, and it was making me take losses that were unnecessary. Also, it was basically making me take trades that weren't really there. I thought it was my perfect setup, but I didn't have enough concrete evidence. So you're probably asking, Colt, how did you get over this hump? I'm struggling with the same exact thing. I'm gonna give you guys 2 major hacks right now that help. First off, for the whole taking trades prematurely and thinking that it was a good setup, what I did is I created a trading checklist. So I went through my chart and I figured out, okay, what is my ideal perfect setup? What components need to be seen on the chart to make it my perfect setup? And I went through and I basically figured out, okay, this is what my perfect setup looks like. And every single one of us, we look at things differently. I might see a girl walking down the street and I'm like, oh my gosh, that girl's drop dead gorgeous. But you might see that same girl and be like, she's okay. So we all see things differently. We all have a different trading style, and we just perceive things differently in this world. So what I did is I went through the chart and I figured out, okay, this is what my ideal perfect setup looks like. And when I see this perfect setup occur, my levels of confidence are going to be very high. And that's something that you guys need to understand, is when you're trading, you want to have very high levels of confidence to overall for you to take a trade. So what I did is when I found that perfect setup, I wrote down all the cues and reasons as to why it was my perfect setup. It had a spinning top or some type of reversal candle. It rejected the 20 EMA. It formed a lower high or a higher low within where that reversal candle was. So I wrote down all these things, and I had 6 things written down that made it my perfect setup, you can say. And then from then on out, instead of me forcing a trade that wasn't there, I had to find that concrete evidence. I had to find those 6 things to overall identify whether it was my perfect setup or not. And if you really want to get technical about it, what you can do, and this is the way that I did it with my trading checklist, is I had 6 things marked off. It was like over the RSI, the 70, it was a higher, lower, high, reversal candle, this happened, I had 6 things. So if I was looking at the chart and I saw only 2 of those boxes were marked off out of 6, I said, you know what, this is a C plus trade, I'm only gonna risk 1% of my account. Then I said, okay, but what if it has 4 boxes marked off? Then I would identify that as a B plus trade and I'd risk 2% of my account. Then if it had all 6 boxes marked off, that would be identified as an A plus trade and I would risk 3% of my account. So that's something that really helped me out. And it gave me the biggest breakthrough because it wasn't so much guesstimating on whether this was a good setup or not. I had to find my concrete evidence. Secondly, if you really want to discover who you are as an individual, the things that you're doing in the present moment and how to actually fix it. If you look at the top athletes, baseball players, soccer players, football players, whatever sport you're relating to, a lot of their coaches, and I do this with golfing. When I go and golf, I get my phone and I record myself doing that swing. And within that swing, I go back and look at that video, usually in slow motion, and I can see, okay, my footwork is off a little. My arm isn't as straight as it should be when I'm swinging, and this. But hey, I did this correct, and I did that correct, and that's why I got 200 yards here versus 100 yards here with the 6 iron. So we need to be able to identify, like, what are we doing correctly and what are we not doing correctly as a trader. The best way to do this is if you guys go to zoom.com, like a Zoom call, you can start a personal room and you could share your screen and record yourself. Now, it's cool to see how you're trading. That is very, very helpful. But I want you guys, when you're recording yourself, to talk as if somebody's looking over your shoulder. Imagine I'm standing over your shoulder. I want you to describe when you're trading exactly what's happening on the chart, but I want you as an individual to open up and share the emotions that you are feeling in that moment. Maybe you're feeling the emotion of scarcity. Maybe you have anxiety. I want you to tell yourself, do you know what? I'm looking at this trade right now, but I don't know why I'm feeling very high levels of anxiety right now. I just don't feel like this is the perfect setup. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wait this out and I'm gonna wait for the next candle to open up. That right there is what's gonna give you your breakthrough. Because not only are you gonna be able to have this documented, but think of it like this. If you're outside, let's say you're at the club or whatever it may be, if somebody's recording you with their phone, I'm 100% guaranteed that you're gonna act a lot different when somebody's recording you versus if somebody isn't recording you. So the same thing applies when you are recording yourself. You're not gonna make the same stupid mistakes. You know that there's more accountability when you're being recorded versus not being recorded. So these little hacks right here are what gave me the biggest breakthrough in my trading. They're simple, but what I want you guys to focus on is repetition. Doing these things over and over and over again, because once you start recording yourself, you're gonna have documentation of how you trade as an individual, but not just that, the way that you think on an everyday basis. And you're gonna look back at these recordings 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, a year from now, and be like, whoa, that's how I used to trade. That's how I used to act. So there's a lot of accountability by recording yourself when you trade, but try this out. Let me know what you guys think. Get some documentation, some data, we should say, and figure out what's working for you and what's not working for you. I hope that this video gave you guys some context on what's working, what worked for me, and what currently does work for me. And if you guys liked it, definitely hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And also guys, I'm going to be dropping more content like this. I think it's more beneficial. I've dropped so much content on the technicals, and I was kind of getting repetitive on the content that I was making, so I want to switch it up. I want you guys to understand the way that I think as an individual and see if you guys can get value from it. See you on the next video. Peace out, guys.